Obinna Nwachukwu was the kind of man everyone admired but few truly knew. At 36, he stood at the helm of one of the most successful oil services companies in Port Harcourt, commanding respect and fear in equal measure. His smile was rare, his words measured, and his presence powerful. Yet behind the luxury of his penthouse in Transcends and the shimmering glass of Nwachukwu Towers, Obinna carried a secret that no amount of wealth could fix. He suffered from a peculiar allergy, one that turned physical contact with women into a nightmare. The moment a woman's hand touched his, or sometimes even when she stood too close, his chest tightened, his skin flared with painful rashes, and his breath hitched like he was drowning. Doctors from Lagos to London had called it psychosomatic. Some whispered of rare immune responses. Whatever it was, it had stolen from Obinna a normal life. The only exception was his mother, Madame Ifeoma. With her, the allergy was gone. Her touch was soothing, a balm on his restless soul. She was his anchor and his fiercest protector. But with Madame Ifeoma's 60th birthday fast approaching, her patience was wearing thin. The grand woman who had raised Obinna with love and tradition was ready to see him settled. Not with just anyone, but with a wife from a good family, one who would carry their legacy. "Obinna," she said firmly one evening, her voice like the thunder that rolled over the Niger Delta. "I will not be dancing alone at my birthday. You are 36. It is time you find a wife. If you do not, I will find one for you myself." Obinna rubbed his tired temples. His mother's ultimatum was no empty threat. It was a declaration. For years, he had evaded this conversation. Relationships ended in embarrassment and pain. He had tried love. It always failed. Madame Ifeoma's gaze was unwavering. "I have made a list. Respectable girls from good families. You will choose from them, or I will choose for you." Obinna's heart sank. To be forced into marriage by his mother was a fate worse than his allergy. But what choice did he have? He glanced at the sealed envelope on the table, a symbol of his coming trial. The faces in that list were strangers, potential actors in a play he had no desire to star in. That night, Obinna sat alone in his penthouse, city lights shimmering below like a sea of diamonds. His world was vast but empty. His allergy was not just physical, it was a wall around his heart. He thought about the only woman who could touch him without harm, the one who never pressured or judged. Yet the clock was ticking. His mother's birthday, the list, the ultimatum, they loomed like a storm. As dawn crept over the city, Obinna made a decision. If love would not come to him, he would find a way to fake it, to survive his mother's demand without shattering himself. He picked up his phone. "Chidi," he said to his assistant, "arrange something discreet. I need someone to play the role of my fiancé." Chidi blinked, surprised. "A fake fiancé, sir?" "Yes," Obinna replied, voice steady but tired. "Someone who can act the part convincingly. Just for a little while. No one else should know." The line went silent. Obinna stared at the skyline again, a lonely man trapped between fear and expectation, preparing to embark on a journey that would change his life forever. Ngozi Okiki moved through the silent halls of Nwachukwu Towers like a ghost. The night shift cleaner was invisible to most, a quiet presence wiping away the traces of the day's business deals, dreams, and disappointments. Her hands, roughened from years of labor, pushed the mop with practiced grace across the polished floors. At 26, Ngozi carried more than just cleaning supplies. She bore the weight of a sick mother's fragile life and a mountain of hospital bills that threatened to crush them both. Her degree in mass communication gathered dust in a drawer at home, a painful reminder of dreams deferred. As she scrubbed near the executive lobby that evening, her phone vibrated, a message from a neighbor. "Your mama was coughing badly tonight. I gave her hot water, but the hospital says the bill must be paid by Friday." Ngozi's fingers trembled. She had only saved a fraction of what was needed, but tears would not help. She swallowed her fear and returned to her work, humming softly the lullaby her mother once sang to her. Meanwhile, Obinna arrived early at the office, his mind restless with plans and worries. As he hurried toward the revolving doors, his foot slipped on a small puddle, and he began to fall backward. Instinctively, a pair of hands caught his arm. Warm skin, firm grip. Time seemed to pause. Obinna froze, expecting the familiar burning rash, the tightness in his chest. But nothing came. No pain, no swelling, no panic. Instead, a calm settled over him as he looked into the eyes of the woman who steadied him. Ngozi's face was flushed with surprise and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, sir," she whispered, stepping back quickly. He didn't move. For the first time in over a decade, Obinna had touched a woman, untouched by his allergy. And it was her, the cleaner. She was gone before he could speak, her footsteps fading into the quiet night. That moment haunted Obinna. He couldn't stop thinking about her, the dignity in her eyes, the strength behind her humble exterior. She was unlike anyone he had ever known. The next day, Obinna called Chidi. "Find out who she is," quietly. When Ngozi's name came back, along with her story, Obinna's heart stirred. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was a woman surviving against all odds. And fate, it seemed, was preparing to bring their worlds closer together. The following week, a quiet buzz stirred in the private conference room on the lower floors of Nochuku Towers. Chidi had arranged a discreet interview, a casting call for the fake fiancé role Obinna had desperately needed to fill. Only a handful of carefully selected women were invited. They arrived one by one, polished and practiced, reciting lines and playing their parts with smiles rehearsed to perfection. But none captured Obinna's attention, not truly. Then the door opened again. Ngozi Okeke stood there, slightly out of breath, clutching a folded file. Her blouse was neat but worn. Her skirt bore a faint stain near the hem. She had heard about the interview from colleagues but didn't expect to be called. She was here for a broadcast assistant position. "Good afternoon," she began, voice steady despite nerves. "I'm sorry I'm late. I came for the broadcast assistant interview." Chidi and Obinna exchanged a glance. Obinna's eyes fixed on her, on the quiet strength that radiated from a woman who hadn't given up despite everything. Obinna gestured toward the empty chair. "Please, sit." Ngozi obeyed, hands trembling as she clutched the file. She had no idea this wasn't her interview. But as she sat, she felt something shift. A chance, maybe the only one she'd get. Obinna studied her carefully, seeing beyond the worn clothes to the intelligence and pride beneath. "Miss Ngozi," Obinna said slowly, "I need someone to play a role for me. It's a temporary position." He explained the situation. His mother's birthday approaching, his mother's insistence on seeing him settled, and the desperate need for a convincing fiancé. He offered her a contract, 400,000 naira per month, accommodations, benefits. Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "You want to pay me to act as your girlfriend?" "Yes, just for a few weeks. No strings, no romance, just a business arrangement." Her breath caught. Pride battled need. "Do you think I'm desperate enough to be bought?" "No," Obinna replied quietly. "I think you're strong, which is why I want you." The room was heavy with unspoken truths. Ngozi stood abruptly, gathering her file. "I don't know what you think I am, but I'm not for sale." She walked out before he could say more. Obinna sank back in his chair, heart heavier than before. The one woman who had touched him without harm, the only one who might have helped him, had just walked away. Ngozi stepped out of the Nochuku Towers conference room, her heart pounding, breath shallow. She didn't know what had just happened, only that she'd been offered something unexpected, a chance wrapped in conditions that stung her pride. Back home in Mile 3, the small apartment was quiet except for the shallow breaths of her ailing mother. The hospital's warning echoed in her mind. "If the bill isn't paid by Friday, we'll have to postpone surgery." Ngozi had 18,000 naira saved. The bill was 5 times that. Her nights were long and restless, filled with whispered prayers and tears held back. Yet that business proposal, strange, cold, and yet full of possibility, lingered in her thoughts. Meanwhile, Obinna sat in his penthouse, restless and haunted by Ngozi's words and presence. He had seen strength in her, a dignity that money could not buy, but the rules were clear. No physical contact beyond necessity, no emotional confusion, no slipping into real feelings. Chidi called with news. Ngozi had returned. She was willing to accept the contract. It was not pride or love. It was survival. On her first day at the mansion, Ngozi stepped lightly, a single bag in hand. The house was vast, polished floors echoing with silence. Obinna's strict boundaries were clear. No mixing of rooms, no accidental touches. He handed her a thick manual filled with rules. How to behave, what to say, when to smile, how to protect the fragile illusion they were creating. No unexpected guests, no physical closeness, no slips. Ngozi's pride flared at the coldness, but she held it down. This was temporary, a business, a means to save her mother's life. Days passed. The mansion slowly warmed with Ngozi's quiet presence. She cooked simple meals that reminded Madame Ifeoma of home. She reminded staff gently to care for the elderly woman. She prayed quietly for health and peace. Obinna noticed the change. The house, once cold and lifeless, began to breathe. He found himself watching Ngozi, not as a contract partner, but as a real woman, though he dared not admit it even to himself. One evening he found her by his mother's bedside, humming a lullaby softly, fanning the old woman gently. Hidden in the shadows, he felt a stirring long buried, a fragile hope. But even hope must follow rules, and the contract held them both captive. For now. The mansion was no longer just a place of rules and quiet chores. It had become a battleground. Adalbi Nosu arrived unannounced, a striking figure from Lagos who had once been Obinna's childhood companion, and in her mind, his rightful future wife. Tall, poised, with the confidence of someone used to getting what she wanted, Adaobi stepped into the grand hall as if she owned it. "Obinna," she said, her voice smooth but edged with steel. "I'm back, for good." Obinna stiffened, the old tension rising like a storm cloud. He hadn't expected Adaobi's return, nor her determination to claim what she believed was hers. Ngozi stood silently, watching the exchange with quiet resolve. She was just the fake fiancé, the contract player, but Adaobi's presence threatened everything. Adaobi wasted no time. She smiled at Madame Ifeoma, mingled with guests, and made it clear she was a force to reckon with. "That girl," she whispered to a close friend, "has no place here." Word spread fast. A single photo from the pre-wedding photo shoot, Obinna holding Ngozi close, their eyes soft and real, leaked online. Social media exploded. "Nine, gold digger alert," one post read. "From mop to mansion, the cleaners climb," tweeted another. Bloggers dissected every detail. Old photos of Ngozi in her work uniform resurfaced. Videos cropped to highlight her humble beginnings circulated endlessly. The hashtag #FakeFiance trended. Ngozi watched, heart pounding, as messages piled up. Some cruel, some mocking, most unforgiving. Her phone vibrated relentlessly. Messages called her names, questioned her motives, and doubted her sincerity. She felt the weight of humiliation crush her spirit. That night, with trembling hands, Ngozi packed her things. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a silent departure from the life she had hoped to build. Obinna returned to find the mansion colder than ever. Chidi burst into his office, breathless. "She's gone, sir. Left without a word." Obinna's chest tightened, not from his allergy, but from a deeper pain. He had lost the one person who had touched him without breaking him. And now the fight was no longer just about a contract. It was about love, pride, and the courage to face the world's judgment. Obinna's world was shattered. Ngozi's sudden departure left an echoing silence in the mansion and in his heart. The viral scandal had exposed her to the merciless glare of social media, and he had done nothing to shield her. He sat in his office, staring blankly at the photo that had started it all, him holding Ngozi close, a moment meant to be private, now public and dissected. Chidi approached cautiously. "Sir, you need to find her. Now." Without hesitation, Obinna grabbed a set of keys and a jacket. He drove through the bustling streets of Port Harcourt, heading toward Mile 3, the humble neighborhood where Ngozi lived. The roads narrowed, the city's glitter fading into worn walls and dusty streets. At the rusted gate of a small compound, Obinna paused. Inside, he found Ngozi sitting beside her mother's bedside, fanning her gently with a piece of cardboard. The room was sparse, thin mattress, flickering bulb, cracked walls, but filled with love and quiet strength. She looked up, startled to see him. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, voice guarded. "I needed to see you, to see the truth," he said softly, stepping closer. Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. "Now you have." Obinna glanced at the worn curtains, the medical machines monitoring her mother's fragile breaths. "I never thought your life was ugly. I just didn't understand how strong you are." Her voice shook. "I never lied to you, Obinna. I took the contract because I needed to save my mother. I wasn't trying to trap you." He took her hands gently. "I knew. I just didn't want it to end." Suddenly, Obinna raised his voice, loud enough for neighbors gathering at windows to hear. "I fell in love with you, Ngozi, not because of a contract, but because of your kindness, your strength, everything you are." Whispers and murmurs spread through the crowd outside. Someone began to film on their phone. Obinna didn't care. He pulled her close. "I'm sorry I let them hurt you, but I'm here now, as a man who loves you." Tears streamed down Ngozi's face. For the first time, hope broke through the pain. The video of Obinna's confession went viral overnight, an unexpected Cinderella story of love, humility, and redemption. The days that followed were filled with healing and renewal. Obinna and Ngozi's reunion sent ripples through Port Harcourt and beyond. The man who once hid behind fear and walls now embraced love openly, and the city watched, inspired. Madame Ifeoma's 60th birthday became more than a celebration. It was a symbol of new beginnings. In a soft lilac dress that glowed with quiet confidence, Ngozi stepped into the Nwachukwu mansion. Not as a contract player, but as family. Madame Ifeoma welcomed her with open arms and tears in her eyes. "You are my daughter now," she whispered. The wedding was simple, yet radiant, held under the warm sun in a garden surrounded by family and friends. Ivory roses lined the aisle, soft music floated on the breeze. Ngozi walked with steady steps, her heart full, past the girl who once feared she would never belong. Obinna waited, no longer a man confined by fear, but one reborn in love. His eyes never left hers. Their vows were not just promises, but truths spoken from the soul, about courage, forgiveness, second chances, and the power of genuine love. Together they launched the New Dawn Foundation, a small agency dedicated to empowering women and youth in Port Harcourt. Ngozi stood before eager faces, teaching skills, sharing hope. "Your dreams matter," she would say. "Dignity isn't about where you start. It's about the strength to rise." Months later, in the quiet of their home, Ngozi held a small stick in her hand, a pregnancy test, 2 clear lines. Obinna's laughter filled the room, deep and joyful, as he lifted her into his arms. Madame Ifeoma burst in, tears streaming. "I saw it in your face this morning. A grandchild is coming." Under the vast Nigerian sky, wrapped in each other's arms, Obinna and Ngozi began their journey, not as billionaire and cleaner, but as partners bound by love, resilience, and hope. Sometimes love doesn't start with fireworks. Sometimes it begins with a simple touch, a mop, a helping hand, and the courage to believe in second chances.